Welcome back to the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. My name is Debbie, and I will be your instructor for this portion of the class. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be reading out of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Parenting Manual. We will be covering pages 43 through 49 under the heading, Effective Parents Teach Self-Control to Their Children. The teacher before me, she just got through doing effective teachers or parents have self-control. Who would like to share with the class what you have learned from her portion of the class? Over here?
Well, she explained that if you, to take your magnifying glass, you can become aware of the kind of triggers that might trigger you to have a real bad response or to lose your self-control in a situation. So if you know your trigger, you can think ahead in advance so that you will be less likely to fall into that trap.
Excellent. That's exactly right. That's exactly what she covered. Have a plan in advance so that you can take care of those triggers. Anyone else? Over here? Back here?
Pay attention to our emotions because our children are mirror images of us.
Our children are mirror images. That's right. That's absolutely true. Over here?
That's around what I was going to say because she talked about overreacting and how, when she overreacted and she, later on when she saw her 2-year-old doing it, she was wondering where he got it from and then she realized it was from her. So, control how we overreact.
Great. Great. And who can tell me what she said about developing self-control? Anybody remember the basic points? I'm looking for particularly one point.
She said don't give up.
Don't give up. Right. Anyone else? How about that?
Self-control is the foundation of all the other traits spring off of self-control.
That's right. And what do we use? What did she cover to say that what we use to control, to practice self-control?
The STOP acronym.
The STOP acronym, it is right there. So today what we're going to be covering, effective teachers teach self-control, and that's our heading. And these are the points we would like to cover. Teach self-control to your children. It's not too early or too late to start. Simple steps to developing self-control, the importance of rules in developing self-control, a few rules about developing self-control, and effective communication. Very important. So, with that said, how many of you here are parents, guardians, maybe babysitters, takers of, the little ones? How many? Great. So the information that I have for you all in this portion of the class, you're all going to benefit very much from it. And by this time you probably say, well, she just got through. If you're developing and practicing to develop self-control, how can I teach it to my children? How many of you ever ask yourself that question? Well, I'm still learning and I'm still developing self-control, so how am I supposed to be teaching this to my children? Have you ever asked yourself that question? I see heads shaking, so I'm thinking that every one of you did. Well, that's great, because you know what? If you are developing and still working on developing your self-control, you are already teaching this to your children. The key to it is parents don't realize that we teach by our example. And as you are working on your development, that example, you are also teaching it to your children. It's so easy. Now, why is it important to teach self-control to children? Anyone? Why is it important to teach self-control to your children?
It's not something that they're just going to pick up on their own, because self-control is something you have to really work at, and there's a technique to doing it. It's not just something you're going to one day wake up and say, oh, I'm in complete control of myself.
And that's right. None of us here got up one morning and said, oh, I'm in control of myself. Have you? And had a perfect day. Anyone here ever had a perfect day? Everything just went just the way you wanted it?
You wanted
to. That's right, you wanted to. But just as you are developing self-control and you find that it's important for you, it's the same for your children. The same is for you. Just as self-control is applicable in all areas of your life, the same is true in your child's life as well. And children need self-control. Children need self-control, and who can tell me why they need self-control? Why? Why do you think children need to have self-control? Over here?
Well, because children don't stay little, they get big.
And you're right, but even children, they go through their emotional. They have emotions just as we adults, we have emotions. And you may not think that you may think they have control over their emotions, but from the time you see a toddler, maybe even younger, you may have seen this for yourself, where a child actually, you give a child something and they don't want it. They will throw it.
Yes.
They're acting out of their emotions, and that emotion is actually self-control. For not keeping that in their hands, but just throwing that is acting out of lack of self-control.
And don't try to take it away from them. They'll get very upset.
And that's another point. They don't know how to control their anger or their frustration or their disappointments. It's very hard for children to control those things. But we can make that difference. The Peace Solution can make that difference in all of these children. I see a hand over here.
They need to learn self-control for the same reason that they need those boundaries. Because it's going to give them security, and it's going to empower them. It's going to help them be more confident in their environment if they know how to control themselves.
Great point, because I am sure with you developing self-control, you feel that confidence in yourself. Well, it's the same with children. When we have children and we can help them to develop the characteristic of self-control, they too will have that confidence in themselves. And that is what you want to instill in them from very small. You want to teach them and train them in that way. Over here?
Also, too, what we've been learning in the class is that self-control is the foundation of moral character. So you need to have self-control in order to be able to learn the different character traits. Self-control
is the foundation of moral character. I like that, and that is absolutely true. If you have been attending all these classes here, you would have known that it is the foundation of moral character. Now, when do you start to teach your children self-control? When they got to the age of 16? 25? When do you start teaching your children self-control? I see a little hand over here. When they're young. And how young did your mommy start teaching you self-control?
When I was a baby.
When you were a baby. Excellent answer. Excellent answer. When she was a baby. And that is so true, because from a baby, you can start teaching children self-control. And I'm a bit older. So when I had my children, I didn't know about self-control. You know, I thought when they threw the cookie because they didn't want it, it was so cute.
Yeah, right. It was
you know,
cute.
oh my, she's telling me she don't want that cookie. You know what I mean? And wow, look at her, they just take that shoe and they just throw that shoe. But little did I know they were acting out of emotions that they didn't have any control of. But by constantly training and talking to them, they have understanding. Never, never, never doubt that children as young as 2 months, 1 month old, do not understand what you're teaching them. They understand every single word you say. And they have a little brain that ticks faster than that clock, because they know exactly how to get out of trouble and get into trouble.
Right. They do. They sure do.
They sure do. But us as parents, caregivers, guardians, babysitters, we have to help them, train their mind, so that they too can have the same confidence as all of us here have, because we have actually taken the opportunity to develop self-control within us. They too have to understand that. And as a result, let's jump it a little bit. What have we seen as a result of lack of self-control today in society? Over here?
Well, we see endless wars, constantly fighting between different nations and people.
Exactly. Over here?
Bullying.
Bullying.
Selfishness.
Selfishness.
Disobedience.
Disobedience. Coming from the little ones.
Graffiti, people writing on other people's property.
Graffiti. I see a hand here and I'm coming.
See a lot of disrespect in society.
Disrespect.
We also see a lot of abuse. It could be physical, verbal, and even sexual abuse.
Exactly. Physical abuse, sexual abuse.
Drunk driving.
Drunk driving. And lately, we have seen so much hatred, anger, violence within the school system, within families. A child, because of lack of self-control, would turn and kill their parents. Because of a lack of self-control, would bring a gun to school and take so many lives. This is all as a result of a lack of self-control. This is why, yes, it is the foundation of moral character. Because on self-control, you can learn to have respect. You can learn to have self-control as well. And you learn learn what is responsibility, right? All these things you will learn from just this one character trait. Let's move on. I'm on page 44 in case you want to know. Simple steps. So let's look at some simple steps to developing self-control. Okay? Simple steps to developing self-control. My first step is to speak in a calm tone of voice when speaking to your child. Speak in a calm tone of voice when speaking to your child. Now, why is that important? Why is it so important to speak in a calm tone of voice? No matter how old he or she is.
I think it is very important because yelling actually, for me, makes me not want to listen, but when you lower your voice or keep it calm, it makes me more interested in what you have to say.
Excellent point. I saw a hand back here.
Well, the lady to the front of part of it. It allows the child to really stop and listen to what you're saying, but as well, it teaches them that you don't have to get out of control to get people's attention. You can speak in a calm tone of voice and still have that person's attention.
Excellent, excellent. You want to remain calm, but then too, if you get out of control and you start screaming and yelling at the child, that doesn't tell the child that you have self-control, right? Because about my mom lost it. Or my dad lost it. Or what's going on here? I thought she was practicing self-control. Where is her self-control? What example are you teaching? What example are you displaying to that child? So it's very important. I know sometimes, you could raise your voice, but you raise your voice to a point where it's not yelling and screaming. You can talk to a child in a stern voice, but still in a calm tone. It's your voice fluctuation. I said, come here. I didn't scream. I'm sure nobody in the other classroom heard me. Or way back there heard me. I said, come here. It's stern, it's calm, it's not screaming. I didn't yell. Second point. Guard the environment of your child. Guard the environment of your child. Now, why is that important? Guard the environment. And before you answer that, what is the environment I'm talking about here? What do you understand by the word environment?
Isn't it where you've got them in the playpen or just
Their home life or their social life?
Their home life, their social life.
that's what I mean.
That's right.
I said the surroundings. Wherever you take them, at wherever you are at that moment, that's their environment at that moment. So their surroundings.
Yes, surroundings. Excellent. Over here.
Also, your children, you might not be in that environment that they're in, but like they go out with friends, so you have to be aware which friends you allow your children to associate.
Exactly. All those are great points. Let me read here. It says, guard the environment of your child. Remember, the environment encompasses everything that externally affects the child. The physical surroundings, which will be your people in them, and are all part of the child's environment. People who are violent, aggressive, vulgar, negative role models. These are the environments that you would want to protect your child from. Because if you're learning to have self-control and to be learning from that self-control to be responsible, to be respectful, and to be around the negative, how is that going to help your child? People who are violent, people who are aggressive, it's not going to help. Our next point also is people who have, and your child is just as likely to learn from them as from you. Okay, keep that in mind. You would not allow a rapist, murderers, thieves, drug dealers, prostitutes, child molesters, or any other criminal or defiant person into your home. So why allow them on the television? I wonder how many of us think about that when we put them in front of the television. Are we still guarding the environment of our children? No, we're not. So our next point will be, I thought I had enough room here. Okay, I think I'm going to have to take it off. There we go. Don't use the television as a babysitter. Don't use the television as a babysitter. This is one of the most damaging things a parent can do. And it is the strongest pull right now in the world. The television, the entertainment industry, they have come up with every imaginable thought, action, emotion to put on the television screen to keep our children entertained 24/7, 365 days a year. Don't use the television as a babysitter. Do not allow your child to play with violent video games. Do not allow your child to play with violent video games or listen to violent sexually oriented music. Instead, what can you replace this with? What can you replace that with today? Because we already know what it's going to do to that child. It's not going to teach that child anything positive. Whereas while we are trying to strive to instill in those children, or our children, positive characteristics. So instead, what are we supposed to do? Did you know that the Peace of Solution have music?
Yes.
Poems that you can recite? MP3 players as well. You're absolutely right. You're keeping up with it.
Yeah, I got them.
I like that. I'm coming.
And you can also replace that with teaching your child the value of reading, getting them involved into reading, so that they can, in the long run, it'll be a benefit to them. It'll help educate them.
You're absolutely right. Read. You know, when my children were younger, I'll tell you what I used to do. That's a great point. You reminded me of what I used to do. And they would say, I'm bored. I said, find a book and read.
Bored, yeah.
Find a book and read. Back then, I didn't have the books that we have today, the Peace of Solution books. They knew of it, but they didn't have all the material that the children today are exposed to. But I think the best thing for a child to do is to read. I tell them, build your vocabulary. Get a book, and if you find a hard word, find the meaning of it. That's how you build your vocabulary. So read. Today we have the Peace of Solution books. We have self-control, responsibility, you name it, acceptance. We can use these tools instead of watching television. Yeah?
When I was growing up, we didn't have television until I was probably about 13 or 14 years old. But I had plenty of chores. I washed dishes. I played music on the piano. I had to help. I learned to do different things like keeping house and cooking and things like that as a child. And so I was learning responsibility.
Exactly. And today we can do the same. We can replace all that entertainment. We can teach a child to garden, to sew, to clean house, to mend their garments. That's part of, sewing. We can teach them so much, so much. Moving on, it says, sometimes, you have a young baby and you're sitting there and you're reciting nursery rhymes or whatever. Instead, we can replace it. Listen to the words of this. And tell me, I want you all to listen really carefully and tell me if you learn anything from these few lines. The polite way. As we sing and work today, we need to ask the polite way. May I, please, thank you too. This shows love to me and you. Now, that was 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. Did you all learn anything from those 4 lines? Tell me something that you learned.
That it's polite to say please, may I, and thank you.
Exactly. And you can teach that from way small. Babies get hungry. They wow when they get hungry, right? And you can teach them, They may not be able to speak, but they let you know what they want, right? And as they get older, you start reciting the right words. You choose your words correctly. Let me use that word. And you instill those things, all these traits, with the words that you use with your child. Over here.
You remind me of a saying that I've read in the Peaceful Solution that says garbage in, garbage out. So if you change the garbage to moral character, then it would be you're showing them moral character, giving them all these tools, and that's what's going to come out of it. They're going to have this moral character.
Yes, that is exactly so. You're going to have, if you give them the tools, the right tools, they're going to build moral character. Let's move on. Keep in mind, the earlier you begin to train and guide a child to develop self-control, the less likely you are to deal with serious, problematic behaviors later on. And we saw that. We saw all of that with remember we mentioned earlier, what we see taking place today. Now let's go a little bit to rules, the importance of rules and developing rules. I passed out some handouts. May I have my first reader?
Make sure that rules are thoroughly considered and evaluated before they are implemented in order to avoid confusing the child. When rules are not clear, not only are the children confused, they are more apt to resist them.
Now that's the first rule. But what I wanted to say before that was we must, in order to have self-control in any situation, in any given situation, even if you work in your office, at home, wherever you are, there are always rules. Rules and guidelines that you must follow to keep everyone safe, protected, to keep everyone just on the right track. Right? So rules are very important. And that's where you start with children. If you want to have practice self-control, instill some rules in that home. Like you said, you had chores to do. Maybe you had a chart where you had to follow those rules for the day, what you had to get done, that chore chart. There are some rules. So rules are very important, and like the lady over here just read, she said, make sure the rules are thoroughly considered and evaluated before they are implemented. In order to avoid confusion, you don't want to put a a big rule out to that child if that child is a 5-year-old. Consider the age of that child and what will work for that child. If that child is older, say 12 years old, you may want to make that rule a little more detailed for that child to follow. My second reader.
Keep the rules constant and focus on the desired behavior you want from your child. For example, instead of do not shout, you could say speak with a quiet voice.
Very important, because children, they have no control sometimes. So you want to remind them, and you constantly remind them. Remember that. Training children to have self-control, it's consistent. You have to be consistent with your rules, and you have to be, every day it's a reminder. You have to remind them consistently. Okay? So, and you want to remind them to speak in a quiet voice. Just as we covered earlier, we too, as we practice self-control, we want to speak in that quiet, regardless of how old that child may be. You want to keep that voice in a low tone. My third reader.
Keep rules simple. They are easier for children to remember. As opposed to no running in the house, you could break a vase, fall, or get hurt. Simply say, walk when in the house. It's uncomplicated and easy for children to remember.
You see how simple that was made? Walk in the house. Or simply no running in the house. Instead of giving all the details what could occur as part of the rule, just make the rule very simple. No running in the house. End of story. My fourth reader.
Be careful not to present too many rules at once. Work on one or two key behaviors at a time, then gradually add more rules as circumstances demand.
Great. How many of you, if somebody gives you too many instructions, you get confused?
Yeah, I do.
I'm that liar. Too many things at one time. Well, just give me one at a time. And then you'll be able to get more accomplished if it's just one at a time. And then maybe next week you could add another one to the one. See what I'm saying? But too many can confuse the child. And my last reader.
Do not expect your child to remember or embrace the rule immediately. Constant reminder and consistency on the part of the parents are absolutely necessary.
Absolutely necessary. And I made that point very clear. You have to be consistent, and you have to constantly remind the child of the rules. None of us here were given a rule or a guideline once and was never told about it before, after. With that said, my time is up. I thank you so much for your time. Keep in mind that as parents today, we face a greater challenge ahead of us because of the society that we live in. We have a lot more influences out there that is actually influencing our children at a much younger age. So we have to do our part to keep our children safe and protected, and of course self-control will help you do that. And with this, thank you for your time.